If you knew you were enough, what would your life look like? What would love look like? This is the Enough Factor broadcast, where we're redefining what makes you enough in life and in love. Now here's your host, Suzette Virnon. Hello everybody, it's your girl Suzette Virnon, and thanks for tuning in today to Enough Factor Podcast. I appreciate you as always, and I am elated to be able to share with you from my heart today. I actually had a guest episode scheduled for today, but something was on my heart that I felt like now was the time to talk about. And so if you would just tolerate me today, next week I will have another guest and we'll be having a great conversation. But today I wanted to talk with you further. But before I jump into that, I just want to take a time out to just welcome my Enough Warriors, those of you out there who listen to my podcast regularly. I always say you're the wind beneath my wings, and you are, and you keep me encouraged because your continued listening and commenting and sending me direct messages and text messages and all of that continues to just reinvigorate the reason why I decided to start this podcast in the first place. And if you're new, I want to tell you what the podcast is about. It's about redefining what makes you enough in life and in love on your own terms. If that resonates with you, then you indeed are an enough warrior too, because it takes courage to abandon the socialization to be someone else and choose instead of chasing somebody else's definition of what makes you worthy or worth it, to take the time to define it for yourself. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's about conversations that help you access your voice, your value, and your vision. What I've come to understand are critical factors of enoughness. They're critical to your experience of yourself in love and in life. So to find out more about my unique perspective on these factors and how they directly affect your experience of life and love, I invite you to listen to Season 1, Episode 1, Why Enough Factor Podcast, where I break them down and I also tell you why I decided that this podcast needed to happen. Just the mere fact that you are listening to me now, that you stumbled upon it or somebody recommended it to you, lets me know that it was necessary for you. So today again, I hit the pause button on having a guest, and I wanted to have an honest talk about life and zero in on something that I've really had to sit with myself. So my job today isn't to train or teach or coach, but to merely invite you into my thoughts, okay? And what I deem as the miseducation that we call adulting or being a grown-up. What prompted this was a combination of things, but the coup de grace, if you will, came when I watched the movie Soul. Has anybody seen that movie? It is really a great movie, and I just happened to be kind of, surfing on TV, and I saw it. It has the voice of Jamie Foxx, one of my favorite people. And okay, I like animation as well. I think it appeals to the kid in me. So I watched it. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, so I'm not going to go into the details about what the movie is about. But it got me to thinking. It got me to really, really thinking about things like what sparks you, things like purpose, things like what's meaningful to you, and most of all, what it means to live. And as I continue to snuggle into being 61 and confronting this thing called being a senior, it's causing me to have to update some parts of my life and to redefine for myself what being 61 or being in my 60s looks like for me. What I want it to look like and what I want it to feel like, and how to align my mindset, how to align my self-image, how to align what I do, how to align what I manifest in the material world, how to align it to this more deeply informed definition. And in my pondering it, I got to be honest with you. I see this question asked to kids: what do you want to be when you grow up? I see it as setting them up for a huge disappointment. First, it ties their being, their existence, their agency in the world to growing up as if where they are right now as children is not enough. It's inconsequential. It's meaningless. That's the first mistake. The second mistake I see in this question is it is the retelling of a lie that you'll be something more, something better, something other. You'll be more worthy based on what you do when you grow up. And so I see it as not meaning to, but just by virtue of the question, having the potential to erase their own sense of value and enoughness just by being asked that question. It distracts them from living now and causes them to reflect on something in the future that they haven't even grown into, shoes they haven't even grown into. Some people are born with this sense of things resonating, and they know at an early age what they want to do. But that's the exception, not the rule. And we have a term for those kids. We call them gifted. Some of them are prodigies. Their life force picks them. They, at the age of 2, can play Chopin and Bach, without having to receive formal training. They have that level of musical brilliance and dexterity, right? But for me as a child, though I really look back and feel like I was a prodigy, that I didn't have that strong sense of it. I didn't have a strong sense of its importance. I've had the pleasure of watching my grandchildren grow, and they're 4 years old right now. And at 4 years old, their expressions are animated, loud, and exaggerated. And because their squeals of pleasure or squeals of displeasure can be outside what's quote unquote acceptable to the grown-up world around them, to use their inside voices. That's labeled as an outside voice. Being told they're too loud. Being told that their loudness is annoying. Being criticized or shamed by grown-ups and society, and sadly, sometimes even we who love them the most. can dismiss their self-expression, not because we're trying to teach them how to acclimate to the world, but because we ourselves find it annoying. And because we find it annoying, labeling it for them as being annoying. I have a question for you. What were you told as a child that disrupted your joy? Were you told, don't sing at the table, don't chew with your mouth open, don't put your elbows on the table? Were you forced to eat something that you found absolutely repulsive? Were you told children should be seen and not heard? When you expressed your opinion, were you told you were being sassy or fast? When you danced, was it sexualized by those around you? And as a result, what was an expression of joy and aliveness for you became something you were taught to feel ashamed of? Were you told your butt was too big? Were you excluded because you were different? Were you taught not to like the very parts of you that make you you, that your Creator took great pride in? Was your expression or experience of aliveness bullied out of you? The consequence of growing up in our society is being picked apart by people and ideologies that before settling in fully in this whole thing called the human experience got imposed on us. Before we learned how to live in our own bodies, before we could experience the joy and the awe and the awesomeness of being in this human frame and all the things that it could do, someone inserted their will, their definition, their ideology, their limiting belief, their story, and as a consequence, bullied us into discounting the very thing that makes us feel alive. Now, let me clarify that what I'm talking about is different from teaching your children how to navigate the world effectively. Sure, that's part of good parenting, to prepare them to live in this world. But all too often in my growing up and in my observation of other parents, it's more about what the parent wants, what the grown-ups want, what society has defined, their likes, dislikes, needs, and requirements, than it is about teaching children how to navigate this world in an effective way, honoring who they are and the gift that they are to this time. And sadly, if you really sit down and think about it, your preferences and biases don't have anything to do with what's in the best interest of that child or honoring who that child is. Instead of taking a posture of discovery and allowing that child to teach you who he or she is, we label them and we impose our will on them and tell them it's good for them, right? And if they're young, they don't have the vernacular, they don't have the words to be able to tell you, no, it's killing me. It's not helping me. It's killing my aliveness. So, we have to really think about the seeds we're planting in our kids. The seeds that tell them they aren't okay as they are. So begins them vying for our validation, vying for our permission, and losing themselves in the process. Leads me to ask this question. Is the consequence of adulting or becoming a grown-up that we become more adapted to the death of ourselves rather than truly invested in our own aliveness? Do you remember who you were before someone force-fed you who they thought you should be? Me? My mom told me that as a baby, I hated to be held. She said that I was quite content to lay in the middle of the bed and play with my fingers and toes until I fell asleep. Watch a baby. They don't need a toy or anything. They are delighted at the discovery of themselves, their fingers, their toes, and their surroundings. Everything goes into their mouths. And if someone would have asked me as a baby who I wanted to be when I grew up, I'm sure I would have been confused. What else was there than this very moment? What else was there than the aliveness I was feeling and the discovery of colors and shapes? What else was there? What would I want to fast forward to? Right? My frame of reference was whatever caught my attention. A sound, a flash of light, a color, my fingers, my toes, the utterances and spits coming out of my mouth. I didn't need to be entertained in any way to feel alive. I can imagine the soul of that tiny me being puzzled at the question, who else am I supposed to be? What else am I supposed to be doing except experiencing what it's like to be alive? To experience this body and what it can do, and the objects and shapes around me. You see, life is not a concept, a noun or a verb. It isn't something that you chase. It's an experience. Folks who live life well may have material wealth or they may not. Doesn't matter, because they're not tied to anything external. Rather, they are tied to the experience of getting to live every day. All the awe that surrounds them, the awesomeness of being able to engage with themselves and with the world. It's the simple feeling of aliveness in everyday awesomeness. Every day, every hour, every moment, the awe of life itself. It needs no definition. There is no other framework. You see, we've become accustomed to our hands and feet, and we assign them tasks and ideals as if their very existence and what they can do isn't enough in and of itself. We qualify our extremities like hands and feet based on how soft my hands are or wrinkle-free, right? Whether my feet look good in heels, whether my fingernails and toenails are properly manicured or pedicured, how agile my hands are in catching a ball or making a free throw. But what about the aliveness that courses through them and how they can gather, touch, communicate, allow us to interact with the larger world? What about their ability to bring comfort to another person, to pat a hand when someone's grieving, to give direction, to direct a symphony, to play an instrument, to stroke a pet, to hold a wheel, to plant a seed, to bring what you need to where you need it? Whether your hand is soft or wrinkle-free, whether your nails are done or aren't, It doesn't change the value of what your hands can do and how they enhance your quality of life. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to imagine you had no hands. How would that impact you? I want you to imagine if you had no feet. How would that impact you? All too often, the longer that we live in our bodies, the more used to ourselves we become. And instead of experiencing what it's like to be alive in this world, we spend more time criticizing and judging, analyzing and equating. We spend so much time disconnected from life itself. There was a time that few people really knew about because I worked from home, but I couldn't sit down because of severe tailbone pain. Now, up until that point, I took it for granted being able to sit down, right? But with that tailbone pain, the logistical gymnastics that I had to go through just to be able to navigate from waking up in the morning until I lay down at night. Oh my God, y'all, it was painful. The strain on my mind, on my legs, on my feet, having to anticipate and plan so that I would not cause myself more pain. Being tired and not able to sit down, having to watch TV standing up, having to work standing up, having to stand up, even at times when most people sit down, but having to stand and wait for my food to digest enough before I could go to bed and lay down so that I wouldn't experience acid reflux during the night. The ointments, the creams, the trying this, the trying that, just to see if I could get some relief, and trying to avoid the pain of having to sit for periods of time, to drive from one place to another, fearing being stuck in traffic and not able to get out of the car. I remember days of going down the highway and driving up to a traffic gridlock and feeling anxiety as my tailbone pain became more and more intense, to the point of crying all the way home because there was no one else to drive the car but me, and I couldn't get out of the car. I had to drive home in pain, agonizing pain. Now, even though I still can't sit all day, every day, which meant I had to change the way I did my own work from home. But yet, the more that I feel that area healing and my ability being restored to be able to sit, it's given me a deeper appreciation for that part of my body. It doesn't matter whether my butt looks too big in those jeans or whether it's flat, it doesn't matter. Or whether it's acceptable to society or not, it doesn't matter. My butt provides a very valuable function that without it compromises my experience of life. And now I have a deeper appreciation that connects me with gratitude and joy at simply being able to sit beside someone, hold my grandchildren on my lap, go for a spontaneous drive with my husband, sit and watch a movie or sit and enjoy a meal. And although I have to take a seat cushion with me, with the tailbone area cut out, it's still worth it. And I say that to say it's so easy to get caught up in things that are inconsequential when you don't fully understand and appreciate the awesomeness and the brilliance of how our bodies are built to support us in being alive in this world. The function of my tailbone, my hands, my feet is only in question when I've allowed a different definition or context for them. But their purpose is not compromised. It's just that societal expectations can cloud our judgment. I think that's the truth about purpose. Just because you don't know what your purpose is or can't appreciate your purpose doesn't make it any less purposeful. So let's look at purpose. What I saw so brilliantly depicted on the movie Soul was the purpose of life. The purpose of you being alive is living. We were given life so we could live it, not endure it, not define it, not label it, not compartmentalize it, judge it, grade it. It was given to us to live it. Right? Likewise, purpose isn't about doing something that matters. It's about being conscious. Conscious like babies are. Conscious of your own aliveness, conscious of the world around. Purpose is about being conscious and sharing that consciousness with the world. That's what purpose is about. That's what gives life meaning. It's about aligning with that divine, inherent knowing that prompts your aliveness to attention. It's about living. We were given life to live it, not to adapt to not living. There is nothing more noble than living. And there's nothing more heartbreaking than a wasted life. There's nothing noble about a wasted life. There is nothing noble about the belief that being an adult is trading in living for something that kills the soul. Trading living for dying is not God's purpose for your life or mine. So I now have a different definition that I'm working on, and I'm flushing it out. And the only person I'm consulting is myself. It's coming directly from inside of me. My new definition is I want to get better at living. And by doing so, invite others to do the same. And I want that for you too. In fact, I invite you to ask the adulting you, the adapted grown-up you, who just wants to be free to live, to love, and to be. I want you to ask yourself this question. And you can grab paper and pencil or pull up your computer and whatever way best suits you or best suits your aliveness. I want you to consider this question. When do you feel most alive? And that aliveness isn't tethered to anybody else. No validation seeking, no permission, no definition, no norm. It's your own experience of aliveness when you do it. And I want you to think about it and don't allow your inner critic to judge you or to criticize you or to make you feel ashamed or guilty about it. No judgments, no explanation, no guilt, no shame. Got it? And the only place I want you to seek is your own soul. So it may mean that you might need to cut off the TV, turn down the volume on your cell phone, turn it over, and sit quietly and focus inward. Now I want you to sit with it, and I want you to zero in. I want you to zero in on what about it makes you feel alive. If you can zero in on that exact thing that goes deeper than the doing of it to the being of it, the being alive part. Now I want you to write down ways you can bring that feeling, that experience of aliveness into what you do. Okay? So the first question, when do you feel most alive? The second question, how can you bring that into what you do? If you can't see how you can incorporate that into your life, then I might be able to help you. Because I help people zero into what their soul really desires so they can write their own definition. And then I help them to make it practicable, right? Make it practical so it can be practicable, meaning they can incorporate that genuine joy, genuine peace, genuine aliveness into their daily lives. I've helped people with it over the years. In fact, my very first coaching client, I remember she called me one day really upset. She said she knew what her calling was, but was paralyzed by fear. With just a few shifts in the way she looked at it, I was able to coach her until she was able to embrace her calling and live it out. And she wanted me to hold her accountable and to continue to help her to practice it, aligning with her soul's deepest desire. I've coached women who have struggled from, transitioning from conventional employment to running their own businesses. I've helped people who have come upon life challenges and have needed someone to help them to work their way through so they could hear their own authentic voice and ascribe to their own value and get their own vision for living and what that should look like for them. And while all those ways of helping people are very rewarding, what people consult me for the most is their relationships. They are purpose-driven, heart-connected, high-achieving, and well-respected women who are smart and inventive and creative, impacting the lives of others for the better. But they struggle to experience the same amount of joy and aliveness in their relationships, whether it's with their husbands, their boyfriends, their girlfriends, or just in connecting intimately in the world. Most of them are women. I have coached some men before, but most of them are women, and most of them have been divorced at least once. And since that time, they have consequently experienced one failed relationship after another, one failed attempt after another. And because I know what it's like to experience an unfulfilling romantic life, I help other people I don't just help them because I've been through it. I help them because I've come out on the other side. And I live every day in partnership with a man who loves me. And I feel it every single day. But see, I don't want it to take you 50 years. And that's why I coach people and accelerate their experience of aliveness in their relationships. Because I don't want you to have to go through the trial and error, bumping your head against the wall method of love. That kind of love that eats away at your sense of enoughness and wounds your soul. Because as smart and sincere as I was, I couldn't in and of myself figure this thing out. I didn't know, even though if I read books, I didn't know how to take the information I was given and connect the dots in a way that was life affirming for me. I didn't know how. But now, since I've lived my way to the other side of that, I'm able to help other people crack that code and discover their aliveness sooner rather than later. So if you need to talk to somebody, give me a holler. I offer a 30-minute free consultation to new folks. And if you're seeking to understand yourself better, to understand what went wrong in your relationships, if you want to experience love in a fulfilling and healthy way, then give me a call. Give me a call. Doesn't matter whether you're heterosexual or homosexual or somewhere in between. We are all humans. And we all struggle with the same existential questions. And because I'm able to help tap into people's humanity, I'm able to help them to align with what works for them, their own definition. My job is not to give you mine. It's to help you to write your own. And so it doesn't matter whether you're gay or straight, or even whether you are a woman who has found herself in a situationship where you feel like the person that you're with, that your partner, might be gay or might be struggling with their sexual orientation. And I know from experience that can do a number on you and on your self-definition and on the way you see yourself. And so I have found through doing the work that I'm able to empathize. I'm able to empathize with the human experience. And I've been effective in helping women, regardless. As I bring this to a close, you don't have to continue to try to adapt to a lifeless, loveless, empty, dishonoring existence and beat yourself up for not being able to. Your aliveness is as close to you as your next breath, as close to you as your next awakening. All you have to do is give yourself permission. Put a pause on the empty busyness, the forced adapting, the chasing this and that, and trying to make yourself contort and fit into somebody else's box. Now, it might feel weird at first because it's been so long since you connect with that part of you. Or if you have, it's only been here or there. But with practice, you can live a connected life. I am a witness to that. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear the answers to your questions. Tell me in the comments what you discovered. And again, if you want someone to bounce your thoughts off of in real time, who can help you with making associations and connections in alignment with your own aliveness, then reach out. Well, Until next time, just in case nobody's told you, I want you to know that you are worthy. You're worth it. You are more than enough. Bye. You have just listened to the Enough Factor podcast with your host, Suzette Vernon. To get notified of new episodes or to dig deeper into today's topic, become a subscriber. And while you're at it, tell us how we're doing and what topics you're interested in. We appreciate your feedback and your reviews. Until next time, remember, you are worthy, you are worth it, you are enough.